3 years ago, Elara Vance crawled into the Deadlands to die. Tonight, she would walk into the Royal Banquet as the Alpha King's Luna. She stood before the mirror in Kael's chambers, and the woman staring back was a stranger. The gown was midnight blue silk that pooled at her feet like dark water, threaded with gold that caught the candlelight. Her white blonde hair fell in soft waves down her back, brushed until it gleamed. The hollow cheeks were gone. The bruises. The hunger. The fear. What remained was something else entirely. Something stronger. On her neck, just below her left ear, the Luna mark glowed with a faint golden light. Kael's mark. The one that had replaced the ragged scar Derek left behind when he severed their bond in front of the entire pack. She touched it now, and warmth spread through her chest. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. She felt him the way she always felt him, a steady presence in her blood, in her bones, in the quiet spaces of her mind where her wolf curled contentedly. Kael's reflection appeared behind hers in the mirror. He was dressed in black, as always, his dark hair pushed back from a face that made other alphas look away. There was nothing soft about him. The sharp jaw, the cold eyes, the mouth that rarely smiled for anyone but her. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. His chin rested on top of her head. "You look," he said quietly, "like a queen. I feel like I'm going to be sick." His laugh was low, just a rumble in his chest. "That's normal. You're about to walk into a room full of wolves who spent years treating you like dirt. Your body remembers, even when your mind knows better." She turned in his arms, pressing her palms flat against his chest. "I need to do this. I know. I need to see his face when he realizes. I know." He cupped her face in his hands, tilting it up so she had to meet his eyes. Gold flickered in the darkness there, his wolf, always close to the surface when it came to her. "But if you change your mind, we leave. No questions. No hesitation. You say the word, and I will carry you out of there myself. Understand?" She smiled, and it felt real. "You'd cause a diplomatic incident. I'd burn the whole kingdom down if it meant keeping you safe." He said it simply, the way another man might comment on the weather. That was the thing about Kael. He never made threats. He made promises. "Are you ready?" "No." "Yes." "Maybe." "I'm ready." The walk to the Great Hall felt endless. Elara kept her hand tucked into the crook of Kael's arm, matching his steady pace through the torchlit corridors of Blackwood Castle. Guards stood at attention as they passed. Servants bowed low. Everyone moved out of the Alpha King's way like water parting around a stone. She remembered another walk. Another night. The cold stone floors of the Silver Crescent packhouse beneath her bare feet. The whispers following her like a swarm of insects. "Did you hear? The Alpha rejected her. In front of everyone. Called her worthless. I always knew she was nothing special. Her parents would be so ashamed." She pushed the memory down. That was then. This was now. "The tribute ceremony will begin within the hour," Kael said, his voice pulling her back. "All 5 alphas will present their offerings. Northern Ridge first, then Eastern Shore, Western Mountains, and finally Silver Crescent." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. He glanced down at her. "Last. As befitting their status." There was something cold in the way he said it. Something that told her Silver Crescent's position at the bottom of the hierarchy was not an accident. Kael had been quietly, methodically, ensuring that Derek Vance's pack suffered for years. She hadn't asked him to. She hadn't needed to. That was the other thing about Kael. He remembered every wrong done to the people he loved. And he was very, very patient. They reached the massive doors of the Great Hall. 2 guards in Blackwood black pulled them open, and sound washed over her, music, laughter, the clink of glasses, the murmur of 100 conversations. The herald's voice cut through it all. His Royal Majesty, Alpha King Kael Blackwood, and Her Royal Majesty, Luna Queen Lyra Blackwood. The room went silent. Every head turned. Every eye fixed on them. Elara felt the weight of those stares like a physical pressure against her skin, and for one terrible moment, she was back in the Silver Crescent gathering hall, standing alone while Derek told the entire pack she was unworthy of being his mate. Then Kael's hand covered hers, warm and solid. She breathed. They descended the stairs together, and the room came back to life around them. Conversations resumed. Music played. But underneath it all, she could feel the curiosity, the speculation, the hunger for gossip. The mysterious Luna Queen. The woman who had appeared at the Alpha King's side 2.5 years ago with no explanation, no history, no pack of origin. Some said she was a foreign princess. Others claimed she was a witch who had enchanted the king. A few whispered that she wasn't real at all, just a ghost the king had conjured to fill the emptiness left by his first Luna's death. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. The truth was hers, and she would reveal it in her own time. Elara. A warm voice broke through her thoughts. Lady Helena of Northern Ridge approached with a genuine smile, her silver hair piled high on her head. She was the oldest of the Lunas, and she had taken Elara under her wing from the beginning. You look stunning, my dear. That color suits you perfectly. Thank you, Helena. Elara returned her embrace, grateful for the normalcy of it. How was your journey? Long and tedious, as always. Marcus insisted on stopping at every inn between here and the mountains to check for threats. I told him the only threat was my patience running out. Kael's beta, Marcus, appeared at his alpha's side with a nod of greeting. He was a mountain of a man with a scarred face and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Lady Helena exaggerates. It was only 4 inns. 4 unnecessary inns, Helena corrected. But I forgive you, Marcus. Your paranoia kept us safe. More Lunas approached. Lady May of Eastern Shore. Young Lady Rosa of Western Mountains, barely 20 and still wide-eyed at the grandeur of the Blackwood court. They gathered around Elara like satellites, and for a moment, she allowed herself to feel it, the warmth of belonging, the sweetness of being accepted. She had never had this at Silver Crescent. Even before the rejection, she had been an outsider. The orphaned daughter of a dead beta, demoted to Omega status, invisible and irrelevant. Here, she was seen. Valued. Loved. She caught fragments of whispered conversations as guests passed by. King adores her, everyone knows. Never seen him smile until she came along. Wonder where she came from. The herald's voice rang out again, and Elara's blood turned to ice. Alpha Derek Vance of Silver Crescent Pack and his mate, Lady Vanessa. The world narrowed to a single point. Elara turned, and there he was. Derek Vance strode into the great hall like he owned it, chin high, shoulders back, every inch the arrogant alpha she remembered. He was still handsome, the strong jaw, the dark hair, the build of a warrior. But there was something different now. A tightness around his mouth. A flicker of insecurity in his eyes that he was trying desperately to hide. His pack was failing. Everyone knew it. Silver Crescent had been declining for years, their tribute to the king growing more pathetic each season. Derek's arrogance was a mask now, thin and cracking at the edges. Vanessa clung to his arm like a trophy. She was beautiful, there was no denying it. Dark hair swept up in an elaborate style, a red gown that showed off every curve, lips painted to match. She moved through the room with practiced grace, smiling at anyone who might be useful. Derek's gaze swept the hall, dismissing guests, calculating threats, measuring himself against the other alphas. His eyes passed over Elara without a flicker of recognition. She was nothing to him. Just another Luna in a room full of them. But Vanessa. Vanessa's gaze landed on Elara, and something happened. A stuttering pause. A slight widening of the eyes. The color draining from beneath the carefully applied makeup. For one heartbeat, too, Vanessa stared at the Luna Queen. Then the mask slammed back into place. The smile returned. The recognition vanished beneath practiced composure. But Elara had seen it. Vanessa knew. Kael's hand tightened on the small of her back. He had seen it too. Steady, he murmured, his lips barely moving. She won't say anything. Not yet. She'll want to figure out what game we're playing first. Elara watched Vanessa lean up to whisper something in Derek's ear, watched Derek's brow furrow briefly before smoothing out. He didn't look at Elara again. Didn't connect his mate's sudden tension with the elegant Luna Queen standing beside the most powerful alpha in the realm. Why would he? The Elara he remembered was a broken, starving Omega who had crawled into the Deadlands to die. This woman, this queen, was someone else entirely. But Vanessa had always been more observant than Derek. More cunning. More dangerous. The banquet continued around them. Music played. Wine flowed. Guests laughed and danced and maneuvered for position. And across the room, Vanessa's dark eyes kept drifting back to Elara, calculating, remembering, planning. The game had begun. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. The tribute ceremony began at midnight. Elara stood beside Kael on the raised dais, watching as each alpha approached the throne in order of rank. This was tradition, a ritual of loyalty that dated back centuries. Each pack presented gifts to the Alpha King, symbols of their prosperity and devotion to the crown. Northern Ridge came first. Alpha Garrett, a weathered warrior with gray streaking his temples, laid out pelts of white Arctic wolves, rare gems mined from the frozen mountains, and a sword forged from steel so pure it sang when drawn from its sheath. Kael accepted with a nod. Northern Ridge honors us. Eastern Shore followed. Bolts of silk in colors Elara had never seen, pearls the size of quail eggs, and spices that filled the hall with warmth. Then Western Mountains, with their offerings of gold and timber and horses bred for war. Each tribute was met with approval. Each alpha returned to their place with their pride intact. Then the herald called the final name. Alpha Derek Vance of Silver Crescent Pack. The hall grew quieter. Not silent, that would be too obvious, but the conversations dimmed, the laughter faded. Everyone knew Silver Crescent was struggling. Everyone wanted to see how far they had fallen. Derek walked forward with his shoulders squared and his chin high. Vanessa remained behind, her hands clasped in front of her, the picture of demure support. Two servants followed Derek, carrying a single chest between them. Elara watched his face as he approached the dais. The arrogance was still there, but underneath it, she could see the cracks. The tension in his jaw. The tightness around his eyes. He knew his tribute would be found lacking. He knew everyone was watching. And he hated it. The servant set the chest down and opened it. Inside lay a collection of items that might have been impressive from a lesser pack, but from an alpha presenting to the king, they were pathetic. A few gold coins. Some furs of middling quality. A dagger with a jeweled hilt that had clearly seen better days. Derek's voice was steady, practiced. Silver Crescent offers these humble gifts to the crown, along with our continued loyalty and devotion. Humble. A careful word choice. As if the meager offering was intentional rather than a reflection of his pack's decay. Kael's expression didn't change. That was almost worse than open disdain. He simply looked at the tribute, then at Derek, and the silence stretched for one beat too long. Silver Crescent's loyalty is noted, Kael said finally. His voice was flat. Cold. You may return to your place. That was all. No acknowledgement of the gifts. No praise. Just a dismissal. Color rose in Derek's cheeks. His hands clenched at his sides. For a moment, Elara thought he might say something, might challenge the king's obvious contempt. But he wasn't that stupid. Not quite. Derek turned and walked back to Vanessa, his spine rigid, his pride bleeding from a wound everyone in the room could see. Elara felt nothing. No, that wasn't true. She felt something, but it wasn't the satisfaction she had expected. It was hollow. Empty. Watching him struggle brought her no joy. She just wanted this night to be over. The banquet resumed after the tributes. Music swelled. Servants circulated with platters of food and goblets of wine. The tension from Derek's humiliation dissolved into the general buzz of celebration. Elara danced with Kael. Then with Marcus, who stepped on her feet twice and apologized profusely. Then with Alpha Garrett, who told her stories about Kael as a young man that made her laugh until her sides ached. But as the hours wore on, the weight of the room pressed down on her. The noise. The heat. The constant awareness of Derek somewhere in the crowd, his gaze finding her again and again with increasing frequency. He still didn't recognize her. She could tell by the way he looked at her, like a puzzle he couldn't solve, like something that bothered him without knowing why. But he was watching. And that was enough to make her skin crawl. "I need air," she murmured to Lady Helena during a lull in conversation. "Of course, dear. The terrace is through those doors. I'll tell the king if he asks." Elara slipped away before anyone else could notice. The terrace was blessedly empty. Cool night air washed over her face, carrying the scent of jasmine from the gardens below. She moved to the stone railing and gripped it, letting the cold seep into her palms. Breathe. Just breathe. Behind her, the door opened and closed. She didn't turn. Probably a servant, or another guest seeking escape from the crush. She would wait for them to leave, then return to the banquet and finish what she had come here to do. Enjoying the view? Her blood turned to ice. She would know that voice anywhere. It had haunted her nightmares for 3 years. It had whispered poison in her ear, told her she was worthless, nothing, a mistake the moon goddess should never have made. Slowly, she turned. Derek stood a few feet away, a goblet of wine in his hand. He was drunk, not staggering, but loose in a way that stripped some of the careful control from his features. His eyes moved over her with open appreciation, lingering in places that made her stomach turn. He doesn't know, she realized. He still doesn't know. "I don't believe we've been introduced," he said, moving closer. "I'm Derek Vance. Alpha of Silver Crescent." She said nothing. He smiled, taking her silence as encouragement. "You must be new to court. I would remember a face like yours." Another step closer. "It's refreshing, actually. So many of these noble women are, how should I put it, cold. Calculating. But you seem different." "Do I?" "You do." He was an arm's length away now. "I could use an ally at court. Someone who understands what it's like to be underestimated. Judged unfairly." His expression turned wounded, practiced. "The king humiliated me tonight, you know. In front of everyone. All because my pack has faced some temporary difficulties." Temporary difficulties. That was what he called years of decline. Years of his own mismanagement and cruelty driving his pack into the ground. "Perhaps," Elara said quietly, "you earned it." The smile faltered. His eyes hardened. "Excuse me?" "Your tribute was pathetic. Your pack is failing. And instead of taking responsibility, you're out here trying to charm strange women in the dark." She tilted her head. "Some things never change, do they, Derek?" The use of his name without title made him bristle. Then confusion crossed his face. Something flickering behind his eyes, a memory trying to surface. "Do I know you?" "You used to." He laughed, but it was uncertain now. "I think I would remember." She stepped closer, into the light spilling from the hall, and let him see her fully. The white blonde hair he had once called plain. The gray eyes he had once called dull. The face he had looked at with contempt for years. Recognition slammed into him like a physical blow. "You," he breathed. "No. It can't be. You're dead. You went into the Deadlands. No one survives the Deadlands." Sorry to disappoint you. His face cycled through shock, disbelief, and then, there it was, rage. The rage of a man confronted with his own guilt, his own failure, his own victim rising from the grave to stand above him. This is impossible. You were nothing. An omega. A worthless, weak. Choose your next words very carefully. But Derek was beyond careful. 3 years of bitter struggle, 1 night of public humiliation, and a bottle of wine had stripped away everything but his wounded pride. You think you can look down on me? He snarled. You think because you found some noble lord to dress you up and parade you around, you're better than me? You're still the same pathetic girl I threw away. You will always be. His hand closed around her wrist. Hard. Bruising. And everything stopped. She was 21 again. Standing in the gathering hall of Silver Crescent while the pack laughed and Derek's words cut into her like knives. Worthless. Unwanted. Rejected. No. Her wolf surged up from somewhere deep inside her, and the world went sharp and silver. She was not that girl anymore. But before she could move, before she could speak, Derek's eyes went wide. His hand released her wrist as if burned. That perfume, he said, almost to himself. Underneath it. Your scent. It's. He knew now. Really knew. Not just that she was alive, but that she was close to someone powerful. Someone whose scent lingered on her skin. His face twisted with a new kind of fury. The humiliation of a man who has thrown away something precious, only to find it claimed by someone greater. His hand connected with her face before either of them could think. The crack of the slap echoed off the stone walls. Elara's head snapped to the side. Pain bloomed across her cheek. For one heartbeat, she was frozen, the girl who had been hit so many times she stopped flinching. Then her wolf roared. Her eyes flashed silver. Her skin prickled with the beginning of a shift. Serafina was there, right at the surface, ready to tear out his throat. But the temperature dropped first. The cold rolled across the terrace like a wave, so sudden and so severe that frost crackled along the stone railing. Derek's breath misted in the air. His wine froze in his goblet. A growl shook the foundations of the castle. Kael stepped out of the shadows, and he was barely human. His eyes blazed pure gold. His muscles coiled beneath his formal clothes. Every line of his body screamed predator, killer, alpha. Behind him, Beta Marcus was already moving, positioning himself between the king and the guests who were beginning to spill onto the terrace. Your Majesty, Derek stammered, stumbling backward. This is a misunderstanding. I didn't realize. You dare. Kael's voice was quiet. So quiet. And so much worse than shouting. You dare touch my Luna. All the blood drained from Derek's face. Luna? He looked at Elara, at the mark glowing on her neck, at the gown and the jewels and the silver fire in her eyes. She's nobody. She's my rejected mate. Choose your next words carefully. Kael moved forward, and Derek flinched back like a whipped dog. They may be your last. Guards materialized from nowhere, seizing Derek's arms, forcing him to his knees. He didn't resist. He couldn't. The Alpha King's power pressed down on everyone present, a weight that made breathing difficult and movement impossible. Elara touched her cheek. It was hot. Swelling. Kael's eyes found her, and for just a moment, the gold flickered with something raw. Something broken. Then Vanessa's voice cut through the silence. Please. Please, Your Majesty, wait. She ran onto the terrace, her red gown streaming behind her, and threw herself to her knees before Elara. Not Kael. Elara. Tears streamed down her perfect face. Her hands clasped together in supplication. Your Majesty, I beg you, please forgive him. He didn't know what he was doing. He's been unwell. The stress of our pack's troubles has affected his mind. Elara stared down at her. He's been having episodes, Vanessa continued, her voice breaking with practiced grief. Hallucinations. He thinks he sees his dead first mate everywhere. He thought you were her ghost come back to torment him. He didn't know. He didn't know. Murmurs rippled through the crowd that had gathered. Uncertainty. Sympathy. Vanessa looked up at Elara with wet, pleading eyes. He needs help, Your Majesty. Not punishment. Please. I'm begging you. Show mercy. It was a masterful performance. Every word calibrated. Every tear perfectly timed. And it was a lie. Every single word. Elara looked at Vanessa's beautiful, treacherous face. Vanessa looked back with eyes that said, I remember what you were. I will destroy what you've become. The crowd waited. Kael waited. And Elara realized that this night was far from over. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. The throne room emptied on Kael's command. Guards escorted the guests away. Servants vanished into the shadows. Within minutes, only a handful of people remained: Kael, Elara, Beta Marcus, Derek on his knees between two guards, and Vanessa still prostrate on the floor with her theatrical tears drying on her cheeks. Kael stood before Derek like death itself. His wolf had receded just enough to let him speak, but the gold still flickered in his eyes, and his voice carried a tremor of barely contained violence. Pack law is clear, he said. A wolf who strikes a Luna forfeits his life. There is no trial. No appeal. No mercy. Derek's face was gray. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Your Majesty, please, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was. You knew she was a woman. You knew she refused your advances. You struck her anyway. Kael's lip curled. Whether she was a Luna or a servant, you would still deserve to die. Kael. Elara's voice cut through the room. Quiet. Steady. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood apart from the others, her hand no longer touching her swollen cheek. The silver had faded from her eyes, replaced by something colder. Something calculating. I want to speak with you, she said. Alone. Kael's jaw tightened. She could feel his wolf fighting him, demanding blood, demanding justice. But he had made her a promise, years ago, on the night he found her broken in the Deadlands. He would never make decisions for her. He would never take away her choices. Even when it cost him. Marcus, he said without looking away from Elara. Take the prisoner to the East Tower. Post guards at every entrance. No one speaks to him without my explicit permission. And the woman? Marcus nodded toward Vanessa. Let her go. For now. Vanessa rose gracefully, her composure restored. She dipped into a curtsy that was just shy of mocking. Thank you, Your Majesty. Your mercy will not be forgotten. She swept from the room without looking at Elara. But Elara watched her go, and filed away every detail. The set of her shoulders. The rhythm of her steps. The faint smile playing at the corner of her painted lips. Vanessa thought she had won something tonight. She was wrong. The king's private chambers were silent except for the crackle of the fire. Kael paced before the hearth like a caged animal. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Every few seconds, a growl rumbled in his chest, low and continuous. Elara sat in a chair by the window, watching him. You should have let me kill him, he said finally. I know. He put his hands on you. He struck you. In my own castle. The words came out through gritted teeth. I have executed wolves for less. I know. He stopped pacing and turned to face her. Then why? Elara was quiet for a moment. She looked down at her hands, at the faint bruises forming on her wrist where Derek had grabbed her. Because death is too quick, she said. He wouldn't suffer. He would just stop existing. And everything he's done, everything he's hidden, it would die with him. Kael moved closer. Knelt before her chair so they were eye to eye. What do you mean, hidden? She had never told him the full story of her life at Silver Crescent. The broad strokes, yes. The rejection, the abuse, the starvation. But not the details. Not the questions that had haunted her for years. My parents died when I was 18, she said slowly. A rogue attack, everyone said. They were traveling to meet with someone important, some kind of business matter, and rogues ambushed them on the road. I remember. It was in the reports. But it never made sense to me. She looked up, meeting his eyes. My father was a trained warrior. My mother was clever, she would never have traveled through dangerous territory without precautions. And the rogues, they were never found. Never identified. The investigation just stopped. Kael's expression sharpened. You think it wasn't rogues? I think someone wanted them dead. And I think Derek knows why. The fire popped and hissed. Kael reached up to cup her uninjured cheek, his thumb tracing gently across her skin. Then we investigate, he said. We tear Silver Crescent apart if we have to. But Elara, his voice hardened. If he's guilty of more than we know, he still dies. Slowly. Publicly. Do you understand? She covered his hand with her own. I understand. Good. He rose and pressed a kiss to her forehead. I'll have Marcus pull every record we have on Silver Crescent. Everything my intelligence network has gathered over the years. Thank you. He paused at the door. Try to rest. It's been a long night. But rest was the furthest thing from her mind. The knock came just before dawn. Elara had not slept. She sat in the window seat, watching the stars fade into gray, turning the night's events over in her mind. When the servant announced that Lady Vanessa requested an audience, Elara almost refused. But something stopped her. Curiosity, perhaps. Or the hunter's instinct to know her prey. Send her in. Vanessa entered with her head bowed and her hands clasped, the picture of penitence. She had changed from her red gown into something simpler, darker. Morning colors, almost. A calculated choice. Your Majesty. She curtsied low. I came to apologize for my mate's behavior. His actions were inexcusable. Yes, Elara said. They were. Vanessa straightened, and for just a moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Irritation at Elara's flat response. She had expected groveling to be met with graciousness. I know you have no reason to show us mercy, Vanessa continued. But I beg you to consider, Derek is not himself. The pressures of leadership have taken their toll. He needs help, not. You can stop. Vanessa blinked. I'm sorry. The performance. Elara rose from her seat, and the movement made Vanessa take an involuntary step back. You knew who I was the moment you walked into the banquet. I saw it in your face. So let's not pretend you're here to apologize. Silence stretched between them. Then Vanessa smiled. It was a different smile than before, sharper, colder, with none of the practiced warmth. You've changed, she said. You used to be so easy to read. So desperate to please. I remember how you used to follow Derek around like a lost puppy, hoping he would notice you. I remember how you used to poison my food. Vanessa's smile didn't waver, but something tightened around her eyes. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Wolfsbane. Just a little. Just enough to keep my wolf dormant. Just enough to make me weak. Elara moved closer, and Vanessa's mask slipped further. Did you think I wouldn't figure it out eventually? You can't prove anything. Maybe not. But I can investigate. I can dig into every record, every secret, every crime your pack has committed over the years. And I think, she paused, watching Vanessa's face. I think I'll find quite a lot. Vanessa's composure cracked. Just for a second. Then it smoothed over, replaced by something harder. Some secrets are better left buried, Your Majesty. The past can be dangerous. For everyone. Is that a threat? A warning? Vanessa curtsied again, but it was a mockery now. I hope you'll consider it carefully. For your own sake. She turned and walked to the door. Paused with her hand on the frame. Oh, and congratulations, she added without turning around. On your position. On your marriage. On everything you've achieved. Her voice dropped. Enjoy it while it lasts. The door closed behind her. Elara stood motionless, her heart pounding. Then something tickled at the edge of her awareness. A scent. Faint, almost undetectable beneath the perfume Vanessa wore. Wolfsbane. Fresh wolfsbane. Beta Marcus arrived within the hour, carrying a stack of ledgers and documents so tall he could barely see over them. Everything we have on Silver Crescent, he said, setting them down on the table in Elara's study. Financial records, census reports, investigation files. The King's intelligence network has been watching them for years. Why? Marcus hesitated. His Majesty suspected they were involved in his father's death. He could never prove it, but... King Aldrich. Elara touched the spine of the nearest ledger. How did he die? Hunting accident. Or so the official story goes. Marcus's voice was careful. He was tracking rogues in the Southern Territories. Near the Silver Crescent border. His body was found 3 days later. 3 days. Long enough for any evidence to disappear. Thank you, Marcus. I'll start going through these immediately. He nodded and left her alone. Hours passed. Elara worked through the documents methodically, building a picture of Silver Crescent's decline. Falling revenues. Shrinking territory. Pack members leaving in droves. But something else caught her attention. The death records. Too many names. Too many young wolves. Died of illness. Lost to rogues. Disappeared during patrol. She cross-referenced the names with census data. Many of them had been Omegas. Orphans. Wolves with no family to ask questions. Her stomach turned. A wave of dizziness washed over her, so sudden she had to grip the table for support. Nausea churned in her gut. She pressed a hand to her forehead, waiting for it to pass. Stress. It was just stress. She hadn't slept. She had barely eaten. When the feeling faded, she returned to the documents. Night fell. Derek paced his tower room like a caged animal, ranting to the guard stationed outside his door. This is an outrage. I'm an alpha. You can't hold me here like some common criminal. The guard said nothing. Derek slammed his fist against the wall. Pain shot up his arm, but he barely noticed. All he could see was Elara's face. The silver in her eyes. The mark on her neck. The Luna Queen. His worthless, rejected Omega was the Luna Queen. It was impossible. It was a nightmare. It was. The door opened. Vanessa slipped inside, closing it quickly behind her. She looked around the room with distaste, the plain furnishings, the narrow bed, the single window with its iron bars. What are you doing here? Derek demanded. If they catch you. They won't. I paid the guard. She moved to the window, peering out at the night. We need to talk. Talk. He laughed, harsh and bitter. About what? How you failed to warn me that my dead mate was alive and married to the most powerful wolf in existence. Vanessa turned, her eyes flashing. I barely recognized her myself. She's nothing like she used to be. And you're the one who hit her in front of half the kingdom, so don't you dare blame me for this. She goaded me. I don't care. Vanessa's voice cut like a blade. What's done is done. Now we need to focus on survival. Derek stopped pacing. What do you mean? I mean she's already asking questions. About the pack. About the past. Vanessa's face was tight with barely controlled fear. If she finds out about. She won't. You don't know that. She's clever. She always was, even when she was too beaten down to use it. Vanessa began to pace herself now, her movements sharp and agitated. We need to destroy her before she destroys us. There's more at stake here than your pride, Derek. Much more. He stared at her. What are you suggesting? I don't know yet. She stopped by the door, hand on the latch. But I'll think of something. In the meantime, stay calm. Stay silent. Don't give them any more ammunition. She was gone before he could respond. The castle slept. Elara crept through the darkened corridors, a single candle lighting her way. She had found a reference in one of the documents, an older ledger, stored in the records room, that hadn't been included in Marcus's delivery. Something about the wording had caught her attention. A note in the margin, see Archive Ledger 7C for full accounts. The records room was cold and dusty, filled with shelves that stretched toward the ceiling. She found Ledger 7C in the far corner, wedged between older volumes. It was a Silver Crescent financial record from 12 years ago. Revenue. Expenses. Ordinary enough. But something felt wrong. The binding was too thick for the number of pages. She examined it more closely. Ran her fingers along the spine. Found a seam that shouldn't be there. The hidden compartment opened with a soft click. Inside was a list of names. Dozens of them. Next to each name was a date, a physical description, and a price. Elara's blood turned to ice. Human trafficking. Silver Crescent had been selling their own pack members. Her eyes moved down the list, and her heart stopped. In the margins, in handwriting she recognized as surely as her own, was a note, evidence secured. Meeting with King Aldrich tomorrow to report. MV. MV Margaret Vance. Her mother. The meeting never happened. Her mother died 2 days before the scheduled date. King Aldrich died a week later. Elara's hands shook. The ledger trembled in her grip. This was bigger than Derek. Bigger than Silver Crescent. This was a conspiracy that had killed a king. Behind her, a floorboard creaked. She spun, the candle flickering wildly. Vanessa stood in the doorway. The cold smile was back, sharper than before. And in her hand, she held a knife. Hello, Elara, she said softly. I warned you. Some secrets are better left buried. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. Vanessa moved first. She lunged across the records room with the knife aimed at Elara's throat, her face twisted with desperate fury. No more masks. No more performances. Just a cornered animal fighting for survival. But Elara was not the starving Omega who had fled Silver Crescent 3 years ago. She dropped the ledger and pivoted, letting Vanessa's momentum carry her past. The knife sliced through empty air. Before Vanessa could recover, Elara's elbow connected with her ribs, hard. Vanessa gasped and stumbled. Spun. Slashed again. This time the blade found flesh. Pain blazed across Elara's forearm as the knife opened a shallow cut. Blood welled up, hot and bright. Her wolf surged. Serafina roared to the surface, and suddenly everything was sharper, the shadows, the sounds, the scent of Vanessa's fear beneath her perfume. Elara's eyes blazed silver. Her nails lengthened into claws. Vanessa's confidence faltered. She had expected the same weak girl she had tormented for years. She had not expected this. What are you? Vanessa breathed. Elara didn't answer. She attacked. The fight was brutal. Short. Vanessa was no warrior, she was a schemer, a poisoner, a woman who preferred to strike from the shadows. In a direct confrontation, she was outmatched. Elara caught her knife hand and twisted. Bone cracked. Vanessa screamed. The knife clattered to the floor. Seconds later, Elara had her pinned against the cold stone, one hand around her throat, claws pricking the delicate skin. "Give me one reason," Elara said, her voice barely human. "One reason not to tear your throat out right now." Vanessa's eyes were wide with terror. But even now, even with death inches away, her survival instinct pushed words from her lips. "You don't know anything," she gasped. "You think you found some great secret? You've barely scratched the surface." Elara's grip tightened. "Then enlighten me." "The trafficking, it wasn't Derek's idea. It was his father's. Lord Vance ran the operation for decades. Derek just inherited it when he became Alpha. That doesn't make him innocent." "No." Vanessa's laugh was wet, desperate. "But it means there are others involved. Others more powerful than you can imagine. You kill me, you kill Derek, you'll never find them all." Elara leaned closer. "My parents. What happened to them?" Something shifted in Vanessa's face. A flicker of genuine fear, not for herself, but of the memory. "Your mother found the records. The same ones you just found." Her voice dropped to a whisper. She was going to expose everything. She had arranged a meeting with King Aldrich himself. She had to be stopped. The words hit Elara like a physical blow. She had suspected. She had known, deep down. But hearing it confirmed. Who gave the order? Lord Vance. Derek's father. Vanessa's eyes darted away. He arranged the rogue attack. Made it look random. By the time anyone thought to investigate, there was nothing to find. Grief and rage churned in Elara's chest, so tangled she couldn't tell them apart. Her mother. Her kind, clever, brave mother. Murdered for trying to do the right thing. And my father? Her voice cracked. He wasn't involved. He didn't know anything about the trafficking. Vanessa's lips curled into something that might have been pity or contempt. Collateral damage. Lord Vance didn't want any loose ends. A grieving husband might ask too many questions. Elara's claws dug deeper. Blood welled up around them. And King Aldrich? The hunting accident? Not an accident. Vanessa's voice was fading, her face pale from blood loss and fear. Lord Vance couldn't risk the meeting happening. He arranged for rogues to attack the king's hunting party. Made it look like bad luck. The door burst open. Guards poured into the records room, swords drawn, torches blazing. Behind them came Beta Marcus, his scarred face tight with alarm. "Your Majesty." He took in the scene. Elara crouched over Vanessa, blood on both of them, the knife on the floor. What happened? Elara released her grip and stepped back. Her claws retracted. The silver faded from her eyes, leaving only exhausted gray. "She attacked me," Elara said. "And she confessed to conspiracy in the murders of my parents and King Aldrich." Marcus's expression went cold. He gestured to the guards. "Take her to the dungeons. The real dungeons. Chain her in silver." Vanessa didn't resist as they dragged her away. But she looked back over her shoulder, meeting Elara's eyes one last time. "This isn't over," she said. "You have no idea what you've started." Then she was gone, and Elara was alone with Marcus and the weight of everything she had learned. Kael was waiting in their chambers when she returned. He rose the moment she entered, his eyes going immediately to the blood on her arm, the torn sleeve of her dress, the pallor of her face. What happened? He crossed to her in 3 strides, taking her injured arm gently in his hands. "Who did this?" "Vanessa. She's in the dungeons now." Elara pulled away from his examination, moving to the table where she had set down the ledger. "But Kael, that's not important. You need to see this." She showed him everything. The hidden compartment. The list of names and prices. Her mother's handwriting in the margins. The connection to his father's death. Kael listened in silence. When she finished, he didn't move. Didn't speak. The fire crackled in the hearth. The candles flickered. Then he picked up the ledger and hurled it across the room. 10 years. His voice shook with barely contained rage. 10 years I've suspected. 10 years I've searched for proof. And it was there the whole time, hidden in plain sight. He began to pace, his movements sharp and violent. His wolf was right at the surface, straining against his control. My father trusted them. He was going to meet with your mother because he trusted her. And they killed him for it. They killed him and his voice broke. I never knew. I never knew. Elara moved to him. Stepped into his path. Placed her hands on his chest, over his pounding heart. Kael. Look at me. He stopped. His breathing was ragged. His eyes flickered between dark and gold. We know now, she said softly. We have proof. We can make them pay for what they've done. All of them. I want to tear Derek apart with my bare hands. I want to. I know. She pressed her forehead to his chest. I know. But not yet. There are others involved. Vanessa said so. If we act too quickly, they'll scatter. They'll disappear. His arms came around her, crushing her against him. She felt the tremor running through his body, rage and grief and the desperate need to protect her. They could have killed you tonight, he said into her hair. If you hadn't fought back, if you were still. But I'm not. She pulled back to look at him. I'm not the girl they tried to destroy. And I'm not going anywhere. They held each other in the firelight. Grieving. Remembering. Finding strength in each other's presence. When Kael finally spoke again, his voice was calmer. Harder. Tomorrow, we begin dismantling everything they built. We find every person involved in this operation, and we make them answer for their crimes. Together, Elara said. Together. The pack healer was a small, gray-haired woman named Marin who had served Blackwood for 40 years. She cleaned and bandaged the cut on Elara's arm with efficient hands, clucking disapprovingly at the depth of the wound. You're lucky it wasn't deeper, Your Majesty. A few inches to the left and she might have hit something vital. I'll try to dodge more effectively next time. Marin snorted. See that you do. She finished wrapping the bandage and stepped back. Now, is there anything else? You look pale. When did you last eat? I'm fine. Just tired. But Marin was already studying her with sharp, knowing eyes. She reached out and pressed her palm flat against Elara's lower abdomen. Elara went still. What are you? Shoo. Marin closed her eyes, concentrating. Her brow furrowed. Then her eyes flew open, wide with surprise. Your Majesty. Her voice had changed, softer, almost reverent. You're with child. About 6 weeks along, if I'm not mistaken. The world tilted. Elara gripped the edge of the examination table, certain she had misheard. That's not, I can't be. You are. Marin's weathered face broke into a smile. The signs are clear. Congratulations. A child. She was carrying Kael's child. Joy and terror crashed through her in equal measure. A baby. A future. Something innocent and precious growing inside her, even as the darkness of the past threatened to consume everything. Please, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Don't tell anyone. Not yet. I want to tell Kael myself, when the time is right. Not in the middle of all this. Marin nodded slowly. It's your news to share, Your Majesty. I'll say nothing. Elara pressed a hand to her stomach. 6 weeks. She counted backward in her mind, and the timing made sense. A night just before the winter moon, when Kael had been particularly tender, when she had felt so loved that she thought her heart might burst. She hadn't known then. Hadn't suspected. But now everything had changed. She had to see this through. Not just for herself, not just for Kael, but for the child growing inside her. The future heir to the Blackwood throne. Her child would not inherit a kingdom built on buried secrets and unavenged crimes. Marcus arrived with new reports an hour later. "We've been going through the records Vanessa mentioned," he said, spreading documents across the table. "The trafficking operation was bigger than we thought. It spanned decades. Hundreds of victims." Elara forced herself to focus, pushing aside thoughts of the pregnancy. There would be time for that later. Right now, there was work to do. How many are still alive? Most are dead, I'm afraid. But we found references to an underground fighting ring that may still be operating. A place where wolves were sold to fight for human entertainment. Marcus's jaw tightened with disgust. Some of the victims may still be there. We have to find them. We're working on it. There's a contact in the Southern Territories who may know more. Elara nodded, then held out her hand. The list of sold children. I want to see it. Marcus hesitated. Your Majesty, it's difficult reading. I need to see it. He handed over the document. She scanned the names, her heart breaking with each one. Children. They had sold children. Innocent pups torn from their families and sent to lives of horror and pain. Then one name stopped her cold. Theo Vance. Age at sale, 8, status, unknown. The document trembled in her hands. Theo. She remembered Theo. Derek's little brother, a sweet, shy boy with messy dark hair and a gap-toothed smile. He had followed Elara around the pack house sometimes, asking her questions, bringing her wildflowers he found in the forest. He had been the only one in Silver Crescent who was kind to her. Everyone said he died of fever when he was 8 years old. The pack had mourned. Derek had seemed genuinely grief-stricken. But Theo hadn't died. He had been sold. Your Majesty. Marcus's voice came from far away. Are you all right? I need to speak with Derek. The East Tower was cold and silent. Guards stood at every entrance, just as Kael had ordered. They stepped aside as Elara approached, bowing their heads in respect. She entered the room alone. Derek sat on the narrow bed, his head in his hands. He looked haggard, unshaven, unwashed, his fine clothes rumpled. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something hollow. When he looked up and saw her, his expression cycled through surprise, hatred, and fear before settling into defiance. Come to gloat? His voice was hoarse. Or maybe you're here to tell me my execution date. Elara said nothing. She walked to the center of the room and stopped, studying him like an insect pinned to a board. Where is Theo? Derek went very still. Theo is dead. His voice was flat. He died when we were children. Everyone knows that. Everyone believes that. Elara pulled the document from her sleeve and held it up. But I have a ledger that says otherwise. A list of children sold to human traffickers. Theo's name is on it. Next to a price. Derek's face drained of color. The handwriting is interesting, she continued, her voice soft and merciless. Mostly your father's, from what I can tell. But some of the later entries, the ones from around the time Theo died, those look different. More recent. They look like yours, Derek. He stood abruptly, his hands clenched into fists. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? She stepped closer. You didn't just inherit the operation from your father. You participated in it. You helped him sell your own brother. He made me. He's been dead for years. You could have stopped. You could have tried to find Theo, to save him. Her voice hardened. But you didn't. You let everyone believe your brother was dead, and you kept selling children. Derek lunged for her throat. It happened so fast that the guards almost didn't react in time. They seized him from behind, wrenching his arms back, forcing him to his knees. He thrashed against them, his face contorted with rage. You don't understand, he screamed. You don't know what it was like. He was always the favorite, always the one everyone loved. He would have been stronger than me. He would have taken everything from me. Elara stared down at him. In his eyes, she saw the truth. The guilt that had festered for years. The terror of being exposed. And underneath it all, buried so deep he probably didn't recognize it himself, relief. Relief that the secret was finally out. We're going to find him, she said quietly. We're going to find every person you and your father sold into slavery. And you're going to help us. Why would I help you? Elara leaned closer, and her eyes flashed silver. Because if you don't, she whispered, I'll make sure your death takes a very, very long time. She turned and walked out of the tower room, leaving Derek on his knees behind her. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. The abandoned mine gaped like a wound in the mountainside. Elara crouched in the tree line with the backup team, watching Kael lead the assault force toward the entrance. Torches flickered in the darkness ahead. Distant sounds echoed from within, growls, chains rattling, something that might have been a scream. She shouldn't be here. Kael had argued for an hour, his voice rising with each point. Too dangerous. Too unpredictable. Too many things that could go wrong. She had won the argument by refusing to back down. Compromise, she would stay with the backup team. She would not enter unless absolutely necessary. She would keep herself safe. She hadn't told him the real reason she needed to be here. The secret growing inside her, 6 weeks along and completely invisible. The child who would never know its grandmother, its grandfather, or the countless other victims of Silver Crescent's cruelty. She needed to see this through. For all of them. Marcus appeared beside her, his massive frame surprisingly quiet in the underbrush. First team is in position. We move on the Alpha's signal. Elara nodded, her eyes fixed on the mine entrance. The signal came, a howl that shattered the night, pure Alpha power that made even the backup team's wolves stir restlessly. Then chaos erupted. Wolves poured into the mine. Shouts echoed. The clash of bodies. The snarl of combat. Elara waited, her hands clenched, her heart pounding. Minutes stretched into eternities. The sounds from within grew more intense, then gradually faded. Finally, Marcus touched her arm. All clear. The Alpha requests your presence. She moved before he finished speaking. Nothing could have prepared her for what waited inside. The mine opened into a vast underground cavern, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows across stone walls. Cages lined the perimeter, dozens of them, stacked 3 high, each one barely large enough for a wolf to turn around in. And in those cages, wolves. Broken, scarred, feral wolves. Some cowered at the back of their enclosures, whimpering at the sudden intrusion. Others pressed against the bars, snapping and snarling at anyone who came close. A few lay motionless, and Elara couldn't tell if they were unconscious or dead. The smell hit her next. Blood. Waste. Fear. Years of suffering soaked into the very stones. She pressed her hand over her mouth, fighting the urge to vomit. Kael appeared at her side, his face grim. Blood spattered his clothes, not his own, she realized with relief. We've secured the handlers, he said quietly. 15 humans running the operation, plus a few wolves who were cooperating. They're being held for questioning. How many victims? 47 still alive. His jaw tightened. We found evidence of many more who didn't survive. 47. Out of hundreds sold over decades. 47 broken souls who had endured years of torture and forced fighting. Elara's grief crystallized into something harder. Something that would sustain her through what came next. "Is he here?" she asked. "Theo?" Kael hesitated. "We think so. There's one wolf who matches the description, age, coloring. But Elara." He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "He's not, he's feral. More animal than man at this point. He attacked the rescue team. It took 6 wolves to subdue him. I need to see him. I'm not sure that's..." "Kael." She met his eyes. "I need to see him." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "This way." They had isolated Theo in a separate chamber, away from the other wolves. He crouched in the corner, 6 chains anchoring him to the wall, 2 on each wrist, 2 around his torso. Even so, the guards kept their distance. The wolf had already injured 3 of them. Elara stopped in the doorway, her breath catching. She barely recognized him. The sweet boy she remembered, gap-toothed smile, messy hair, flowers clutched in his small hands, was gone. In his place was something feral and scarred. His body was a map of old wounds, crisscrossing his skin like terrible roads. His eyes, when they met hers, held nothing but animal rage. He lunged against the chains, snapping and snarling. "Your Majesty, stay back," one of the guards started. "Everyone out." They stared at her. "Now." Kael gestured, and the guards filed out. He remained by the door, tense and ready. Elara moved forward slowly. 1 step. 2. The wolf tracked her movements, his growl building in intensity. "Theo," she said softly. "Do you remember me?" Another lunge. The chains snapped taut. His teeth gnashed inches from her face. She didn't flinch. "You used to bring me flowers," she continued, her voice steady. "Wildflowers from the forest behind the pack house. You said they were magic, that if I held them tight enough, they would make me invisible so no one could hurt me." The growling faltered. "Just for a moment. You had nightmares sometimes. Bad ones. I used to come to your room at night, when everyone else was asleep." She moved closer still, close enough to touch. "I would sing to you. Do you remember the song?" Silence. Elara began to sing. It was a lullaby her own mother had sung to her, long ago. Simple words. A simple melody. A promise of safety in a world full of danger. "Sleep now, little wolf, the moon is watching over you, dream of forests green and deep where the shadows cannot reach." Theo's body began to tremble. "Sleep now, little wolf, the stars will guide you home when you wake, I'll still be here, you will never be alone." A sound escaped him, something between a howl and a sob. The feral rage drained from his eyes, replaced by something else. Recognition. Pain. The desperate confusion of a man who had forgotten he was human. "Elara?" His voice was rusty, broken from years of screaming and silence. Is it really?" She dropped to her knees before him, tears streaming down her face. "It's me, Theo. It's me. I found you. I'm so sorry it took so long, but I found you." He collapsed against her, and the sound he made was the most heartbreaking thing she had ever heard, a grown man sobbing like the child he had been when they stole his life away. She held him as he broke apart, stroking his matted hair, whispering the same words over and over. "I've got you. You're safe now. I've got you." They brought Theo back to Blackwood Castle under heavy guard. He was too unstable to be left unchained, too traumatized to be left alone. Healers worked on his physical wounds while Elara sat with him, holding his hand, anchoring him to reality whenever he started to slip back into the feral darkness. Days passed. The trial approached. Marcus reported that they had gathered enough evidence to convene a full judgment trial: the ledgers, Vanessa's testimony, the surviving victims, Theo himself. All 5 alphas would witness. The truth about Silver Crescent would finally come to light. But on the night before the trial, Elara found herself standing at the window of their chambers, staring out at the stars. Kael came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You should be sleeping. I can't. Nervous about tomorrow? No. Yes. She sighed. I don't know. He turned her to face him. Talk to me. She struggled to find the words. I hate him. Derek. For everything he did to me, to Theo, to all those people. I want him to pay. He will. But I'm about to destroy his entire life. Take everything from him, his title, his freedom, probably his life. She looked up at Kael, her eyes searching. He did the same to me. He took everything from me. So if I do this to him, does that make me just like him? Kael was quiet for a moment, considering. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. There's a difference between justice and cruelty. You're not destroying him for pleasure. You're not doing it to feel powerful, or to prove something. You're doing it to stop him from hurting anyone else. He cupped her face in his hands. Every day that man remains free, more innocents suffer. Theo suffered for years because no one stopped him. How many more Theos are out there, in places we haven't found yet? I just don't want to become the thing I hate. You couldn't. He pressed his forehead to hers. You have the kindest heart of anyone I've ever known. The fact that you're worried about this, that's proof that you're nothing like him. She closed her eyes, letting his words wash over her. He was right. She knew he was right. But the weight of tomorrow still pressed down on her, heavy and inescapable. Kael. There's something I need to tell you. He pulled back slightly, studying her face. What is it? This wasn't the right moment. The trial was tomorrow. Everything was chaos. She should wait until after, until things were calmer, until they could celebrate properly. But she was tired of waiting. Tired of carrying the secret alone. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. Kael went completely still. Not breathing. Not blinking. Frozen like a man who had just been told the world was ending, or beginning. You're. His voice cracked. Say that again. I'm pregnant. About 6 weeks. The healer confirmed it after Vanessa attacked me. She watched the emotions cascade across his face. Shock. Disbelief. And then. Joy. Pure, overwhelming, devastating joy. Tears spilled down his cheeks. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in existence, wept openly in front of her. He dropped to his knees. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer. His forehead pressed against her stomach, and his whole body shook with the force of his emotion. After everything. His voice was muffled against her dress. After losing Lydia, after thinking I would never. I never thought I would have this. A family. A child. She ran her fingers through his hair. Her own tears fell freely now. We're going to have a baby, she whispered. You're going to be a father. He looked up at her, his face wet, his eyes shining. I love you. I love you so much I don't have words for it. I know. She smiled through her tears. I love you too. He rose and kissed her, deep and tender and full of promise. When he finally pulled back, some of the grief had lifted from his eyes, replaced by something fierce and protective. We tell no one until after the trial, he said. It's too dangerous. Agreed. And tomorrow, you stay behind the guards. No heroics. No confrontations. Kael. Please. He took her hands. I can't lose you. Either of you. She squeezed his fingers. You won't. I promise. They retired late, curled together beneath the firs. Elara woke just before dawn. Something was wrong. She slipped from the bed, careful not to wake Kael. In the gray light filtering through the window, she noticed something that hadn't been there before. A folded piece of parchment, slipped under the door. She picked it up, unfolding it with trembling hands. The message was written in elegant script, precise and cold. The Luna Queen dies at dawn. The king will follow. The old order will rise again. At the bottom, a seal she had never seen before. A silver crescent moon, crossed with a crown. The conspiracy didn't end with Derek or Vanessa or the old Alpha of Silver Crescent. Someone else was pulling the strings. And they were coming for her. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 6. The Great Hall had been transformed into a court of judgment. Gone were the banquet tables, the musicians, the flowing wine. In their place stood rows of wooden benches, filled with witnesses and nobles and pack representatives from across the 5 kingdoms. Armed guards lined every wall. Torches burned in iron sconces, casting harsh light that left no shadows to hide in. At the far end of the hall, 2 thrones sat on the raised dais. Kael occupied one, dressed in black, his face carved from stone. Elara sat beside him, her midnight blue gown a deliberate echo of the banquet, a reminder of where this had all begun. The threat from this morning burned in her mind. She had shown Kael the note immediately. He had tripled the guards, stationed archers in the galleries, ordered every entrance sealed and watched. But the trial had to proceed. They had come too far to stop now. The 5 alphas sat in a semicircle before the thrones. Northern Ridge. Eastern Shore. Western Mountains. 2 smaller packs from the outer territories. They would witness the judgment. They would carry the truth back to their people. In a cage to the left of the dais, Vanessa knelt in chains. Her beautiful red gown was gone, replaced by prisoner's gray. Her hair hung lank around her face. She stared straight ahead, showing nothing. And in the center of the hall, Derek stood in heavy iron chains, guards on either side. He looked worse than Vanessa, unshaven, hollow-eyed, his arrogance finally stripped away. But when his gaze found Elara's, hatred still flickered in the depths. Hidden in a protected alcove, shielded by curtains and surrounded by healers, Theo watched. He wasn't strong enough to be seen publicly. The sight of his brother might send him spiraling back into feral rage. But he had insisted on being present. Elara had held his hand before the trial began. Promised him it would be over soon. Marcus stepped forward, a scroll in his hands. The hall fell silent. We are gathered to render judgment on Derek Vance, former Alpha of Silver Crescent Pack, and Vanessa Moore, his mate and co-conspirator. His voice carried to every corner of the room. The charges are as follows. He unrolled the scroll. Conspiracy to commit human trafficking, spanning 3 decades. Conspiracy to murder Margaret and Thomas Vance. Conspiracy to murder King Aldrich Blackwood. Conspiracy to murder the current Luna Queen, Lyra Blackwood. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Additionally, Marcus continued, Derek Vance is charged with the sale of his own brother, Theo Vance, to an underground fighting ring, where the victim was held for 15 years. Gasps. Shocked whispers. Even the alphas shifted in their seats. Derek's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. How does the accused respond to these charges? For a long moment, Derek was silent. Then he lifted his chin, and a ghost of his old arrogance surfaced. I was following orders. My father built that operation. I inherited it. I had no choice. No choice. Marcus's voice sharpened. The records show your handwriting on ledgers dated years after your father's death. You expanded the operation. You sold more children. I was trying to phase it out. I was. You were profiting. Marcus held up a document. Financial records showing payments deposited into your personal accounts. Payments that continued until 3 months ago. Derek's defense crumbled visibly. He looked around the hall, searching for sympathy, finding none. My father threatened me, he said, his voice rising. He said if I didn't cooperate, He would kill me. He was a monster. I was a victim too. You were Alpha for 10 years. Elara's voice cut through the hall, quiet but clear. You had a decade to stop it. You chose to continue. Derek's eyes locked on hers. Something shifted in his expression, the hatred giving way to something more complex. You don't understand, he said. Then explain it to me. The hall waited. Bring the witness, Kael ordered. Guards unlocked Vanessa's cage and dragged her forward. She moved without resistance, her face still blank, but Elara could see the calculation behind her eyes. Vanessa had been offered a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence, imprisonment instead of death. She had accepted immediately. Tell the court what you know, Marcus commanded. Vanessa straightened, and when she spoke, her voice was cold and clinical. The trafficking operation was established 40 years ago by Lord Vance, Derek's father. But he wasn't the architect. He was following orders from someone higher. Murmurs swept the hall. Lord Vance answered to Elder Cormac of Silver Crescent. Cormac designed the system. He selected the targets, orphans, omegas, anyone who wouldn't be missed. He arranged the sales. He kept the books. Elara's breath caught. Elder Cormac. She remembered him, a stooped old man with cold eyes who had watched her suffering at Silver Crescent with something like satisfaction. And the murders? Marcus pressed. Margaret and Thomas Vance? Elara's mother discovered the records. She was going to expose everything. Elder Cormac ordered the hit. Lord Vance arranged the rogue attack. Vanessa's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. There were no actual rogues, of course. Just Silver Crescent wolves wearing rogue scent to cover their tracks. Elara gripped the arms of her throne. She had known. She had suspected for weeks. But hearing it confirmed. Her parents had been murdered by their own pack. And King Aldrich? Kael's voice was barely controlled. Vanessa turned to face him. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, perhaps fear, perhaps a dark satisfaction at the pain she was about to inflict. The king was going to meet with Margaret Vance. She had sent him evidence of the trafficking operation. If that meeting had happened, everything would have been exposed. She paused. But there's more, Your Majesty. Something I haven't told anyone yet. The hall went utterly silent. Your first Luna. Lydia. Vanessa's voice dropped. She wasn't killed by rogues either. Kael went rigid. She had discovered connections between Silver Crescent and the trafficking ring. She was investigating quietly, planning to bring evidence to her mate. Elder Cormac learned of it. Vanessa's eyes glittered. He ordered her elimination. Your father was killed a month later, when he started asking questions about her death. The sound that came from Kael was barely human. He surged to his feet, and the entire hall felt his alpha power crash over them like a wave. Lesser wolves dropped to their knees. Even the other alphas flinched. Elara moved without thinking. Her hand found his arm, gripping hard. Kael. Her voice was soft but firm. Not yet. We need to finish this. He was trembling. His eyes were pure gold, his wolf right at the surface. She could feel his rage through the bond, a volcano on the edge of eruption. Please, she whispered. For me. Slowly, agonizingly, he sat back down. But his hands gripped the arms of his throne hard enough to crack the wood. Bring the victim forward, Marcus commanded. The curtains of the alcove parted. Theo emerged, supported by 2 healers. The hall gasped. He was scarred beyond recognition, a patchwork of old wounds and fresh healing. His eyes darted around the room, wild and frightened. But when they landed on Derek, something changed. Recognition. Rage. And underneath it all, grief so deep it seemed bottomless. Theo. Derek's voice cracked. Theo, I don't Theo's voice was rusty, broken. Don't say my name. I was a boy. Father made me do it. He said if I didn't. You were 13. Theo took a shaking step forward. Old enough to know. Old enough to refuse. Old enough to find help. I was scared. I was 8. The word tore out of Theo like a howl. I was 8 years old, and you let them take me. You let them. His voice broke. He couldn't continue. Elara was on her feet before she knew she was moving. She crossed to Theo, wrapping her arms around him, holding him as he shook. It's over, she murmured. You never have to see him again. It's over. Derek stared at his brother's broken form, and something in him finally shattered. I'm sorry. The words came out in a rush. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 15 years. Theo's voice was muffled against Elara's shoulder. Sorry doesn't undo what they did to me. Derek fell to his knees, chains clanking. His head dropped. His shoulders heaved. And then he spoke again, so quietly that only those closest could hear. Elara. She looked up. His eyes found hers, and all the masks were gone. All the arrogance, all the cruelty, all the desperate self-justification. What remained was just a man confronting the wreckage of his life. I rejected you because I knew, he said. I knew that if we completed the bond, you would sense the truth. Your wolf would feel my guilt. You were always too good, Elara. Too honest. Too kind. His voice dropped to a whisper. You would have destroyed me. I had to push you away before you could. The hall was silent. So it wasn't because I was weak, Elara said slowly. It wasn't because I was worthless. You were never worthless. Derek's laugh was bitter, broken. You were the only pure thing in that whole rotten pack. And I couldn't let you see what I really was. She stared at him for a long moment. 3 years of believing she was nothing. 3 years of thinking she had deserved her rejection. You're right about one thing, she said finally. I would have destroyed you. She turned away. Kael rose to pronounce judgment. Derek Vance, you have been found guilty of. The arrow came from the gallery. Elara heard the whistle of air, saw the flash of metal in the torchlight. Her mind registered the trajectory, aimed at her heart, but her body was too slow to react. Kael was not. He moved faster than she had ever seen him move, throwing himself in front of her. The arrow buried itself in his shoulder with a sickening thud. Chaos erupted. Guards swarmed the gallery. Screams filled the hall. The other alphas leaped to their feet. Elara caught Kael as he staggered, her hands pressing against the wound. Blood seeped through her fingers. I'm fine, he growled. Find the assassin. Got him. Marcus's voice rang out. Guards dragged a struggling figure from the gallery, an old man with cold eyes and a silver crescent pin on his cloak. Elder Cormac. The architect of everything. The puppet master behind Lord Vance, behind Derek, behind decades of trafficking and murder. He laughed as they forced him to his knees. You think this changes anything? He spat. The old bloodlines will never bow to a wolfless Omega Queen. She's nothing. She's... Elara stepped forward, her eyes blazing silver. This wolfless Omega, she said, her voice ringing through the hall, is carrying the heir to the throne. The hall went silent. The future is already born. She stood over the elder, and she had never looked more like a queen. Your old order is finished. Cormac's face twisted with fury. He opened his mouth to speak. And then Kael collapsed. The arrow. Something was wrong. He hit the ground hard, convulsing, foam flecking his lips. Elara dropped beside him, screaming his name. Poison. The healer who rushed forward recoiled. The arrow was poisoned, wolfsbane concentrate. The same compound that suppresses wolves, but in a lethal dose. No. No, no, no. There has to be an antidote. There has to be something. The only cure grows in the Deadlands. The healer's face was grim. No one survives the Deadlands. Kael's hand found hers, weak and trembling. Elara. Don't. Tears streamed down her face. Don't you dare leave me. You promised. You promised. His eyes fluttered closed. And the Luna Queen screamed. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 7. Kael was dying. The healers worked frantically around him, their hands slick with blood and herbs, their faces grim with concentration. They had moved him to the royal chambers, laid him on the bed where Elara had slept in his arms just hours before. His skin was gray. His breathing was shallow. Black veins spread from the arrow wound like cracks in ice, the poison working its way toward his heart. How long? Elara's voice didn't sound like her own. The head healer, Marin, looked up with exhausted eyes. Hours. Maybe until dawn. The wolfsbane concentration is unlike anything I've seen, it's attacking his wolf directly. If we can't stop it, his wolf will die first. Then him. The antidote. You said it grows in the Deadlands. Moonpetal root. It only blooms under the dark moon, and only in the Deadlands. Marin shook her head. Your Majesty, no one survives that territory. The rogues alone would. I survived it once. You were dying when the king found you. You would have been dead within hours. Then I have hours. Elara moved to the bed, pressing her hand against Kael's clammy cheek. Through the bond, she could feel him, faint, flickering, like a candle in a storm. How will I recognize this root? Silver leaves. Glowing petals. It grows near water sources. Marin grabbed her arm. Your Majesty, please. You're carrying the air. If something happens to you. If something happens to him, there is no kingdom for an heir to inherit. Elara pulled free. Marcus. The beta stepped forward, his scarred face tight with barely controlled emotion. Guard him with your life. If I'm not back by dawn, her voice broke. She forced the words out anyway. If I'm not back by dawn, you'll know what to do. Elara. Marcus rarely used her name. Let me send a team. Let me go myself. Your wolves would die in the Deadlands. You know that. She touched his arm briefly. Take care of him, Marcus. Please. She walked to the balcony, stripping off her gown as she moved. The night air hit her bare skin, cold and sharp. She thought of the baby growing inside her. 6 weeks of life. A future that might never exist. Then she thought of Kael. His smile. His hands. The way he looked at her like she was the only light in his world. She shifted. The white wolf burst from her skin, larger than before, stronger, her fur gleaming silver in the moonlight. Serafina howled once, a sound of rage and determination that echoed across the castle grounds. Then she leaped from the balcony and ran into the darkness. The Deadlands had not changed. Elara remembered them from 3 years ago, the twisted trees, the poisoned air, the constant sense of being watched by things that hungered. She had crawled through this territory on the edge of death, wanting only to disappear. Now she ran through it on 4 legs, faster than she had ever moved, driven by a desperation that burned brighter than fear. Rogues came first. A pack of 6, feral and starving, drawn by the scent of a healthy wolf. They surrounded her in a clearing, snarling and snapping. She didn't slow down. Serafina hit the first rogue like a thunderbolt, jaws closing on its throat before it could react. The second fell to her claws. The third she threw into a tree with enough force to shatter bone. The remaining 3 fled, whimpering. She didn't stop to catch her breath. Kael's heartbeat fluttered in the back of her mind, growing weaker with every passing minute. Keep running. The landscape grew more treacherous. Pools of black water that reeked of poison. Plants with thorns that dripped venom. Shadows that moved wrong, that followed her with hungry patience. Something huge crashed through the undergrowth behind her, a creature she didn't recognize, all teeth and scales and burning eyes. She ran faster, legs burning, lungs screaming. The creature fell back. Even monsters had limits. She didn't. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes, time meant nothing here. All that mattered was the fading pulse of the bond, the weakening thread that connected her to Kael. Don't die. Don't you dare die. I'm coming. She found the stream just before midnight. It cut through the dead landscape like a silver ribbon, the only clean water she had seen. And there, growing along its banks, she saw it. Moonpetal root. Silver leaves. Petals that glowed with soft, ethereal light. She shifted back to human form, her body screaming with exhaustion, and began to gather the herb with shaking hands. I wouldn't eat those if I were you. Elara spun. A woman emerged from the shadows, elderly, weathered, but with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her, more figures appeared. Wolves in human form, dressed in rough clothing, armed with makeshift weapons. Survivors. A hidden community in the heart of the Deadlands. I'm not eating them. Elara straightened, clutching the roots to her chest. They're medicine. My mate, the Alpha King, he's been poisoned. This is the only antidote. The woman studied her for a long moment. Then something shifted in her expression. You have your mother's eyes, she said quietly. Elara's heart stopped. You knew my mother? Margaret Vance saved my daughter's life. The woman moved closer, her weathered face softening. 20 years ago, when the trafficking was at its worst. Margaret discovered what was happening. She couldn't stop it, not yet, but she helped people escape. She created a route through the Deadlands, guided them to safety. I never knew. She kept it secret. To protect the survivors. To protect you. The woman touched Elara's cheek gently. My name is Iris. And you, child, are standing in the sanctuary your mother built. The hidden village was larger than Elara expected. Dozens of wolves lived here, survivors of the trafficking ring, runaways from abusive packs, refugees from wars long forgotten. They had built homes into the hillside, cultivated gardens, created a life in the one place no one would look. Iris explained it all as her healers prepared the antidote. The roots needed to be processed correctly, combined with other herbs, or they would be useless. Your mother planned to expose everything, Iris said. She had evidence. She was going to meet with the king himself. But they found out. They killed her before she could reach him. I know. Elara's voice was hollow. I found the records. The meeting that never happened. There are more records. More evidence. Hidden here, with us. Iris leaned forward. The trafficking didn't end with Silver Crescent, child. It spread to other packs. Northern Ridge. Eastern Shore. Maybe more. Your mother was gathering proof against all of them. Elara's blood ran cold. The other alphas. Some knew. Some participated. Some looked the other way for a price. Iris's eyes hardened. When you return, you can take our testimony. All of us are willing to speak. It's time the truth came out, all of it. The antidote was ready within the hour. A small vial of glowing liquid that held Kael's life inside it. Elara tucked it into a pouch around her neck. Thank you, she said to Iris. For everything. Thank your mother. She died for us. Iris embraced her briefly. Now go. Save your king. And when you're ready, come back for us. We've been hiding long enough. Elara shifted and ran. Dawn was breaking when she reached the castle. She had never run so far, so fast. Her wolf was pushed beyond all limits, muscles screaming, lungs burning. But the bond with Kael had grown stronger as she approached, still faint, but present. Still alive. She shifted at the gates, naked and exhausted, and collapsed into Marcus's arms. The antidote, she gasped. Take it. Now. Hurry. Guards rushed the vial to the healers. Marcus wrapped his cloak around her, half carrying her into the castle. He's still alive, he said. Barely. But still fighting. He promised. Tears streamed down her face. He promised he wouldn't leave me. They reached the royal chambers just as Marin administered the antidote. Elara pushed through the crowd of healers, falling to her knees beside the bed. Kael's face was ashen. The black veins had spread to his jaw, his temples. He looked more dead than alive. Come on, she whispered, gripping his hand. Come back to me. Please. Come back. Seconds passed. Minutes. Then. Kael gasped. His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. The black veins began to recede, slowly at first, then faster. Color flooded back into his skin. Elara. Her name came out as a croak. I'm here. She was laughing and crying at the same time. I'm here, I'm right here. His hand found her face, trembling with weakness. The baby? Safe. She pressed her forehead to his. We're both safe. He pulled her down onto the bed, holding her with what little strength he had. She curled against him, feeling his heartbeat grow stronger with every passing moment. I felt you, he murmured. Running through the darkness. Fighting. I held on because I felt you fighting for me. Always. She kissed his jaw, his cheek, the corner of his mouth. Always, always, always. The trial resumed 3 days later. Kael was still weak, he walked with a cane, his arm in a sling, but he refused to remain in bed. The king would render judgment. The king would see this through. The survivors from the Deadlands had returned with Elara. 47 witnesses, each with their own story of horror and survival. They testified before the assembled alphas, their voices steady despite the pain. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. 3 of the 5 packs had members involved. Alpha Garrett of Northern Ridge discovered that his own uncle had facilitated sales. Eastern Shore's trading guild had laundered money for years. Even Western Mountains had wolves who had looked the other way for gold. The purge began that same day. Arrests across all territories. Trials scheduled. Assets seized. For the first time in decades, the 5 kingdoms united, not in celebration, but in a reckoning long overdue. Derek remained in his cell throughout. He had not been sentenced yet, that judgment was delayed until the full conspiracy was unraveled. On the 3rd night, he sent a request. He wanted to speak with Elara. Alone. You shouldn't be here. Marcus stood at the tower door, arms crossed. He's manipulated you before. He could be. I'll be fine. Elara touched his arm. Wait here. I won't be long. The cell was cold and dim. Derek sat on the narrow bed, head bowed, hands clasped between his knees. He looked smaller than she remembered. Diminished. You came. He didn't look up. You asked. Silence stretched between them. I'm going to die, he said finally. Whatever judgment the king pronounces, it ends with my death. I know that. Yes. Then I have nothing left to lose. No reason to keep secrets anymore. He raised his head, and his eyes were hollow. Defeated. There's one more thing, Elara. One more secret I've carried since before I knew you. She waited. Your mother wasn't just a beta's wife. She was descended from the ancient Luna bloodline, the original wolves. The ones who existed before alphas, before packs, before any of this. His voice dropped. That's why your wolf was dormant for so long. She was too powerful to awaken without the right trigger. The wolf's bane Vanessa used, it didn't suppress your wolf. It contained her. Kept her from emerging before you were ready. Elara's breath caught. When the bond between us formed, I felt it. The power sleeping inside you. I knew that if we completed the mating, if your wolf fully awakened at my side, you would be stronger than me. Stronger than any alpha. Derek's laugh was bitter. I couldn't have that. I couldn't have a mate who would see through me, who would challenge me, who would destroy everything I was trying to protect. So you rejected me. I rejected you because you were always meant to be a queen. He met her eyes, and for once, there was no hatred there. No cruelty. Just exhausted truth. I just couldn't let you become one at my side. Elara stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away. If you are enjoying this video, kindly do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 8. The Great Hall had never been so silent. Every seat was filled. Every eye fixed on the raised dais where the Alpha King stood, recovered but still bearing the marks of his near death. A faint scar showed above his collar where the poisoned arrow had pierced him. He walked without the cane now, but Elara could see the effort it cost him. She sat beside him on her throne, her hand resting on her stomach. The pregnancy was still invisible to the eye, but she felt the life growing there, a small, warm presence that gave her strength. Derek stood in chains at the center of the hall. Vanessa knelt in her cage. Around them, 24 conspirators from across the 5 kingdoms waited for judgment, their faces gray with fear. Kael's voice rang out, cold and final. Derek Vance. You have been found guilty of human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and crimes against the crown spanning decades. He paused, letting the words settle. The penalty for these crimes is death. Derek's head dropped. However, Kael stepped forward. Death is too merciful for what you have done. You spent your life believing that power made you untouchable. That your wolf made you superior. So I will take both. Murmurs swept the hall. Derek Vance, I strip you of your alpha title. I strip you of your pack. And by the ancient rights of our people, Kael raised his hand, and power crackled in the air. I strip you of your wolf. The ceremony was brutal. Derek screamed as Kael's alpha power tore through him, severing the bond between man and beast. His wolf, the source of his strength, his identity, his very self, was ripped away like a limb. When it was over, Derek collapsed to the ground. He looked smaller. Older. Human. You will live the rest of your days as what you always feared becoming, Kael said. Nothing. No pack will shelter you. No wolf will acknowledge you. You are nameless, packless, and alone. Guards dragged Derek away. He didn't resist. There was nothing left in him to resist with. Kael turned to Vanessa's cage. Vanessa Moore. You have been found guilty of conspiracy to murder the Luna Queen, conspiracy to assassinate the Alpha King, and participation in the trafficking operation for over a decade. Vanessa lifted her chin, defiant to the end. I demand. You demand nothing. The sentence is death. It will be carried out at sunset. Her composure finally cracked. She screamed as guards unlocked her cage, thrashing against them as they dragged her from the hall. One by one, Kael pronounced judgment on the remaining conspirators. 23 wolves from 3 different packs, all found guilty. All sentenced to death. By the time the sun set, the old corruption had been purged from the 5 kingdoms. Theo waited in the alcove, watching the proceedings with hollow eyes. When the last conspirator was removed, Elara rose from her throne and crossed to him. He flinched at her approach, he still flinched at sudden movements, still woke screaming from nightmares, but he didn't pull away. It's over, she said softly. They're gone. All of them. It doesn't feel over. His voice was rough. It feels like it will never be over. I know. She took his scarred hand in hers. But you're not alone anymore. Kael and we want you to stay. To be part of Blackwood Pack. To be part of our family. Theo's eyes widened. I'm not. I'm broken, Elara. I can barely control my wolf. I'm dangerous. You're healing. And we'll help you keep healing, for as long as it takes. She squeezed his hand. You were the only one who was kind to me at Silver Crescent. You brought me flowers. You made me feel like I mattered. Let me return the favor. For a long moment, Theo said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay, he whispered. Okay. The formal address came at twilight. Elara stood on the castle balcony, looking down at the thousands of wolves gathered in the courtyard below. Representatives from all 5 kingdoms. Survivors from the Deadlands sanctuary. Common wolves who had traveled for days to witness this moment. Word had spread about her bloodline. The ancient Luna. The original wolves. Power beyond anything the modern packs had known. She saw fear in some faces. Awe in others. Uncertainty in most. She took a breath and began to speak. 3 years ago, I was the lowest Omega in the weakest pack. I was starved. Beaten. Rejected by my mate in front of everyone I knew. I crawled into the Deadlands to die, because I believed what they told me, that I was worthless. That I was nothing. That I didn't deserve to live. The crowd was silent. Your king found me in that darkness. He saw my worth when I couldn't see it myself. He gave me a home, a purpose, a reason to keep fighting. She paused. But I am not special. I am not unique. There are others like me, right now, in your packs, suffering in silence. Omegas who are abused. Children who are sold. Wolves who are told they don't matter. Her voice rose, carrying across the courtyard. The trafficking operation we destroyed was not an aberration. It was a symptom of a sickness in our society, the belief that the strong have the right to prey upon the weak. That power means permission to harm. That some lives matter less than others. She gripped the balcony railing. That ends now. Today, we forge a new covenant between the 5 kingdoms. The strong will protect the vulnerable, not exploit them. Every wolf, alpha or omega, powerful or weak, has value. Has worth. Has the right to live without fear. She looked out at the sea of faces, and her eyes blazed silver. I was once the lowest omega. Now I am your Luna Queen. And I will spend every day of my reign ensuring that no one suffers as I suffered. That no child is sold. That no wolf is broken for profit or pleasure. Her voice softened. Our duty as the strong is to protect, not to prey. Remember that. Live by it. Teach it to your children. The silence stretched for 1 heartbeat. 2. Then the cheering began. That night, Elara and Kael sat alone in their chambers. The fire crackled low. The noise of celebration drifted up from the courtyard below, muffled by stone walls. Elara curled against Kael's side, her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. Can I ask you something? She said quietly. Anything. Your first Luna. Lydia. She felt him tense slightly. You never talk about her. I understand if you can't, but I want to know. If you're willing to tell me. Kael was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. She was kind. Gentle. She loved flowers, used to fill our chambers with them. Drove the servants mad, petals everywhere. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. She laughed easily. Made me laugh too, which wasn't easy back then. I was so serious. So focused on duty. She taught me that joy wasn't weakness. How long were you together? 2 years. We were trying for a child when. He stopped. Swallowed. When they killed her. Elara pressed closer, offering what comfort she could. I blamed myself for years. I should have protected her. Should have known there was a conspiracy. Should have, his voice broke. I shut down after she died. Became the cold king everyone whispers about. I thought if I never let anyone close again, I could never be hurt that badly again. And then you found me. And then I found you. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Broken and bleeding in the Deadlands. And something in me recognized something in you. My wolf knew before I did. Knew what? That you would save me. Just as much as I saved you. Elara lifted her head to look at him. Tears shone in his eyes, rare, precious, trusted only to her. She would have loved you, he said softly. Lydia. She would have adored you. You're both fighters. Both survivors. He touched her cheek. Both queens. Elara kissed him, soft and tender. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for asking. They held each other in the firelight, grieving together, healing together. The next morning, Kael led her through the castle with a mysterious smile. Where are we going? You'll see. They climbed to the east wing, a section Elara rarely visited. Kael stopped before a closed door, his hand on the latch. I've been working on this for weeks. Since before the trial. I wanted to wait until things were calmer, but... He took a breath. Close your eyes. She obeyed. The door opened. He guided her forward. The smell hit her first, fresh paint and new wood and something sweet, like lavender. Open them. Elara opened her eyes. The nursery was beautiful. Murals covered every wall, wolves running under moonlight, through forests and meadows and starlit skies. The colors were soft, dreamy, perfect for a child's imagination. A crib stood in the center, carved from dark wood with such intricate detail that Elara's breath caught. Ancient oak, Kael said quietly. From the heart of Blackwood Forest. The same tree my cradle was carved from. And my father's before me. Elara walked to the crib, running her fingers along the smooth wood. Tears spilled down her cheeks. It's perfect, she whispered. It's absolutely perfect. Kael wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands coming to rest on her stomach. Our child will be born here, he said. In this room. Surrounded by love. Safe. Protected. His voice dropped. Everything we never had. She turned in his arms and buried her face in his chest, crying happy tears for the first time she could remember. 6 months later. The winter moon hung full and bright over Blackwood Castle. Inside the royal chambers, Elara gripped Kael's hand hard enough to bruise as the final contraction tore through her. The healers moved with practiced efficiency. Marin's calm voice guided her through the pain. And then. A cry. Strong and healthy and absolutely furious at being brought into the cold world. A boy, Marin announced, her weathered face breaking into a smile. A perfect, healthy prince. They placed the baby in Elara's arms, and everything else fell away. He was so small. So perfect. Dark hair, Kael's hair. But when he opened his eyes, squinting against the candlelight, she gasped. Silver. His eyes were touched with silver, like moonlight on water. Her eyes. Hello, little one, she whispered. I'm your mother. I've been waiting so long to meet you. Kael leaned over them both, his own eyes wet. He touched his son's tiny hand, and the baby's fingers wrapped around his thumb. He's beautiful, Kael said hoarsely. He's perfect. At the doorway, Theo stood watching. The scars were still there, would always be there, but something had changed in his face. The wildness had receded. Peace had begun to take its place. He would be the baby's guardian. They had decided that weeks ago. A purpose for a broken man. A family for someone who had lost everything. Theo smiled. Really smiled. For the first time in 15 years. Beside him, Marcus wiped his eyes roughly with the back of his hand. Allergies, he muttered when Theo glanced at him. Dust in here. It's winter. Winter allergies. Elara laughed, the sound bright and free. She looked at the life she had now. The husband who adored her. The son in her arms. The brother she had saved. The kingdom that had accepted her. And she let go. Let go of the starving Omega who had crawled into the Deadlands to die. Let go of the rejected mate who had believed she was worthless. Let go of the fear and the shame and the pain. She was no longer that woman. She was Luna Queen. She was home. Epilogue. A village in the eastern human territories. The man who had once been Derek Vance set down his shovel. His back ached. His hands were calloused. He had aged decades in the 6 months since his judgment, gray in his hair, lines carved deep in his face. The other laborers didn't know who he was. Didn't care. He was just another worker, another pair of hands, another nobody. He looked up at the winter moon, and felt nothing. No wolf stirring in his chest. No power humming in his blood. No bond connecting him to pack or family or purpose. Just emptiness. A newspaper blew across the muddy ground, catching against his boot. He bent to pick it up, more from habit than curiosity. The headline made him stop. Alpha King and Luna Queen celebrate birth of Crown Prince. Below it, a sketch of Elara, radiant, smiling, holding a baby in her arms. Kael stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, looking at her like she was the center of the universe. Derek stared at the image for a long time. Then he dropped the newspaper in the mud, picked up his shovel, and walked away. The moon watched him go, cold and silent. He didn't look up again. I know you enjoyed this video. Do well to not forget hitting this like button and subscribe to this channel. Also share your thoughts in the comments section and share this video to family and friends. The end.